ziua, Ghini va fly. Himați să zburăm de organizații. Bună ziua, mă înțelegeți? Cine vorbește română în public? Ah, bună. Dar restul? Ist es auf Deutsch? Spricht hier jemand Deutsch? Guten Morgen, meine Damen und Herren. Wir sprechen über neue Organisationen auch nicht. Desculpa, isto é para ser em português, não? English? Okay. Is English the right language for this audience? Please raise your hand if you understand English. Okay, great. While we're at it, I know you like this up and down. Please raise your hand if you are from academia. Professor, student, researcher. Oh, hi. Okay, good. Now, please raise your hand if you are a manager, a corporate manager. You work in a corporation. I see you over there. Raise your hands. Okay. Okay. And what about designers and creatives? You know, the ones that sit with a laptop in a cafe and pretend they work? Okay, we have some of those here. Good. Well, my name is Daniela Marzavan. I am Vlachica, Macedo-Latin by blood. I am Romanian by birth. I am German by education. And Portuguese by choice. I moved here exactly today 1 year ago with the most handsome surfer in town and 2 little kids. And I speak many languages. He only speaks photography, and I will come later to that. So, I speak many languages, and nevertheless, it was very difficult for me to find the right words to describe a specific phenomena that I saw happening in organizations. This is why I changed the title of this talk, so whatever you signed up for, forget it. This talk will be about the Tower of Babel. How can we overcome language confusion and innovation theater with social practice? Just like the Tower of Babel was a failure because the people who were united by their goal got divided by language and their plan got lost in translation, I witnessed many organizations where the creative plan had no translation to the rational plan, where business did not speak finance, and design did not speak programming, and programming did not speak strategy, and so on and so forth. These organizations end up in a terrible waste of time and resources, a crisis of identity, and very often talent loss. They have huge cemeteries full with ideas that are dead or died long before they went to market. Particularly these 2 phenomena, I was lucky enough to be part of very early on. Now, who has heard of co-working? Raise your right hand. Right hand, maybe you worked in a co-working space, or you were one of the pioneers of this movement. And what about design thinking? Has anyone ever forced you to stick sticky notes on a wall? And do you have that new chief innovation officer that all of a sudden wears sneakers and is really cool and creative, and everyone has to be autonomous, creative, and self-thought, but only until Monday? Because then it's work as usual. So we all know these innovation boot camps, these accelerator programs, the new design thinking strategy, the corporate co-working space that is the answer to everything that is post-COVID. I see you nodding. It's hurtful, isn't it? Since 2009, I was around when these 2 phenomena started evolving. And it was interesting back then because we, and I'm talking about the bold founders of the Beta House Berlin, who I have had a chance to follow from the very beginning, the bold founders of Co-work Lisboa, who I had the chance to work with from the very beginning, and the ones that brought design thinking to Europe, at the HPI in Berlin. Since the very early days on, we all knew these two practices are going to disrupt fundamentally the way we work. We're dreaming of corporations having to apply for jobs for us to work for them. We were dreaming of remote work, autonomous work, people that show up with their full creative self for whatever job they do. And this is what I then saw. It took me a PhD to understand how this phenomena impact organizations. I could not really describe in words how these two Trojan horses were starting a revolution from the inside out. So I enrolled at the Bauhaus University of Weimar and read a lot about design theories and management theories and organization theories. And I had my eureka moment, but I will tell you later about it. But two things were clear. When big organizations want to infuse innovation, they focus on structure. So where do we put innovation? And the upper one is a model of Sabine Junginger. So we are totally obsessed with the place of innovation. You can see mostly it's a separate function outside the organization. You can play, there's a playground. When you come back, you better write those reports and take the shoes off, the sneakers. Some organizations put design innovation on a peripheral function, maybe in the marketing or sales department. And of course, the aim is, such says theory, to have design and innovation and creative, non-rational practices at the core and center of the organization in their DNA. The lower image is from a research paper I published with my co-author, who worked within one of the largest German automotive companies. You might know which one it is. And this is what we found out. The headquarters in Wolfsburg. Okay, you all know which company it is. And there you have workshops, playgrounds, several days, engaging activities, labs, accelerators, incubators, some spin-offs, maybe hackathons, which have become very popular, especially during the pandemic. And maybe you have a community of practice where people connect to learn with each other, but it's all separate from the structure. So there is a lot of writing, and I found a lot of descriptions of why organizations are so focused with the structure and the place where to put organizations structurally. I thought that makes sense because the way we build our organization linearly, like a production line, inspired by Ford and by the way we assemble a car, obviously we would need to find a place to put this new thing, this innovation thing, this non-rational creative practice that kind of messes with everything we knew so far. Then I found another obsession, which is the obsession with people. First, the practice has to carry out a new paradigm. And then, of course, we need to train people. So let's change people. The exercise we just did in a panel is about how to bring and motivate people towards change, to become something they are not, something new. So we have all these leadership programs, all these certifications. People become Scrum Masters and Agile makers and design thinkers, and they try to change everything they used to do, they learned in school how to do. But isn't that too much of a burden? If we focus and are so obsessed with leadership, doesn't that leave us with a huge wave of burnout, of mental health issues? So I found something that really opened up to me a new perspective to look at this phenomena in organization. Something that was fundamentally different than looking only at structures or people. Something that made me understand that innovation and new paradigm in organizations, it's made of 8 several elements, and they are all connected to each other. And you cannot regard only one and neglect the other, because that will backfire. And I want to take you to a journey of how I found these 8 elements called the social practice theory. I can bother the few academics later on about the details, but I was asked to be as unacademic as possible, so I'm trying. So the social practice theory was my academic eureka moment. I had the answer. I had decoded the phenomena I was trying to study and understand. As researchers, you want to predict and control, you want to decode things and understand them. And I had. So besides structures and people, there were much more elements to it to run out a social practice in organizations. So, do you know what it is? Bucharest, okay. It's the capital of Romania. I grew up in a communist country. I was born in a communist country and grew up in a country in transition. And the general state in this city was uncertainty and crisis. So when the financial crisis hit in 2008 and 2009, later on we had the Arab Spring with a lot of political unrest in Spain and in other parts of the world. We had the Fukushima disaster 2013. I was thrilled. Crises. I remember crises from my childhood. My body remembered that crises are good, that crises have opportunities. So I traveled to all these places to find out how crises trigger creativity. Even in the pandemic, my embodied knowledge and experience told me, you know how to deal with crisis and uncertainty, actually much better than with stability. So this was important for my social practice lens, because I understood how body was part of the social practice lens. So I added body to the social practice lens and embodied knowledge. Then, of course, if you add a body, you have to keep the mind in place. And meraki is something that is very typical to Macedo-Latin, to my language. Meraki is a state of mind. Meraki is when you do something with joy and passion. I remember my grandmother telling me, whatever you do, if it's cutting an apple or passing that really important exam, do it with meraki. So next time I was trying to implement a new transformational program in an organization, I really looked at the state of mind of people. What were the routinized way of thinking and of feeling? Working in some East German companies, you could see that the mindset was so different than the ones that the CEOs were trying to push. People didn't believe in themselves or in each other. There was a mindset of mistrust. So I added mind to my social practice lens. Next, I added discourse. Language is important, right? Language is important and symbols are important. When I thought that this world cannot be changed from bottom up, because the bottom of movement and revolution in Romania did not quite work, was hijacked, let's say so, like in so many other post-communist countries, I thought I'll go top down. So I enrolled to become a diplomat at the European Council. And I remember this one meeting when I had to sit on the big chair of the ambassador because everyone was gone to have drinks with some very important people. And I had to sit there for 4 hours while all representatives of all these countries were talking about one word. The meaning of one single word in a recommendation was so important that hundreds of people were sitting there to discuss which word should go into the recommendation. Back then I thought it's a total waste of time and resources. We had hundreds of interpreters and translators that then translated everything in 8 languages, and we had piles of papers printed in 8 different languages with that new word. Later I understood that language matters. Symbols matter. And especially in the new paradigm of work, we move towards a more effective way of looking at organizations. We constantly generate meaning and negotiate the meaning of our organizations. So the discourse, the way you speak and what you say, the symbols that you use in an organization equally carry out the practices. This is Ernst Handel on the left. He's an artist, a punk. He used to occupy houses in Berlin back in the 90s. Now, he's almost 70, and he infuses aesthetic practices in big organizations. This is a picture from another German automotive company. Maybe you might guess which one it is. So he does artwork with top managers. And that piece of art, created by the board of directors, then travels to the different countries where this company has its offices. It's an object that transports meaning. It's a doing and saying through an artifact. So what did I do? I added artifact to my lens, of course. Artifacts are important because we pass the age where only humans are important. Objects have a memory too. And objects transport as well the transformation we want to see. And since we're at the objects, we have to think about the space. This is Beta House Berlin, one of the first co-working spaces in Europe that got really big and opened up in many countries. And I remember one day receiving a call from top managers of large corporations that wanted to come visit us. It was 2009, maybe. Of course, back then, we functioned on money from the 3F, from friends, fools, and family. We couldn't really put our business model in words, so no bank wanted to give money to the founders. So we started to charge people for having a tour in our amazing space because we were all over the media. And on this one particular day, I really wanted to sleep in. So I thought, I don't want to show these people around who don't understand anything whatsoever of what we're doing here. I'll just add a 0 to the sum, and they will eventually cancel. Take a guess, they didn't cancel. Of course they didn't cancel. I had to wake up early in the morning and show them around. And I asked them, why do you pay so much money to come and see this space with cheap furniture, with electricity cables coming down the wall? What is it? And you know what they said? They said, we come here to breathe creative air. We would have made a fortune bottling up that air. We weren't that smart back then. So people pay money to breathe the air, to breathe your creative air, and whatever your atmosphere and your space emanates. So space matters. Of course, I added space to my social practice lens. And there was another element that I got inspired from Zucchi Zucchini. This is a project by the Global Innovation Gathering. The Global Innovation Gathering, you should follow, is one of the biggest global group of makers, hackers, innovators, grassroots innovators, internet activists from the global south, Africa, Latin America, Asia. And they come together once a year. I'm very much honored to be on their board. And what we did here was bring together distributed knowledge. So Zucchi Zucchini was a project of reconciliation between the farmers and the FARC in Colombia, close to Bogota. This is a country that has suffered very much from this conflict. And we asked ourselves, how can we start a conversation between the different parties? So we brought together people from governments, techies, people from corporations, farmers, food techs, local leaders. And what they brought to the table, what carried out our innovative practice, was their knowledge. Their knowledge about the written and unwritten rules, and the knowledge about tools, so the skills. So one thing that I had to add to the lens was knowledge. The knowledge about the rules and tools, the knowledge about skills. So here it was, my social practice lens. As you can see, we have in the upper corner, Zucchi Zucchini, remember that was knowledge. The knowledge carries out the practice equally as does the space with its atmosphere that you want to pay for to breathe the air. Then you have the body, the embodied experience of crisis or stability. How can you bring change in a company that has been around only in stable times, in France or in West Germany? And then you have Meraki, that beautiful childish joy and passion that you put in whatever you do, the mindset. We have the artifacts and the objects, we have the discourse and language, and we have the leaders. So I thought, this one we did already. So I thought, okay, this is it. I have it. I have my social practice lens. It's not about the language. It's about the way we look at things. It's not about finding the right vocabulary to describe our new organizations. It's about looking through a new perspective. And more importantly, I applied this lens in my research. So for researchers, it's an amazing way to lay out the code for whatever post-rational phenomena you're looking at, either if it's hackathons, design sprints, co-working, all these new post-rational, non-rational phenomena that enter organizations can be analyzed through the social practice theory and through the social practice lens. For managers, the social practice lens can help you know what you want to hire and what you better not hire into your organization, and to be fully aware that if you hire one of the elements, the others will join. As for the designers and techies and creatives that go into organizations and are maybe asked to infuse some of these new practices in large corporations, you should be more aware of the impact that you have and maybe place it more effectively. So I'm asking you, which critical element have you neglected so far? You can speak it right out. Is it space? Is it knowledge? Is it artifacts?
I would say most of them.
Did you focus only on leaders and structures? On the place where you should put the innovation outside? Well, thank you so much for joining me. I want to invite you to continue the conversation. So, currently we are talking about the future of work, not anymore, the new work, not anymore, the present of work, where we are now. And the new conversation I want to engage with you is about the practice of work. And actually, I would like to ask the organizers of this conference eventually to change the title by the present of work and start engaging in conversation about the new practices that shape our present. Thank you so much for being here today.